What am I saying again?
This is MPW,
MPW.
the podcast
with your host,
Xylo Aria. Cool.
a podcast about music production
for the everyday musician,
where we learn from experienced studio engineers and each other.
Annick Blaize and Sasha Campbell are co-hosts of the upbeat and bubbly music podcast Songwriting Saves the World. The show centres around women and queer people in music, highlighting songwriters, artists, producers and more. Their newest season, titled Strictly Business, highlights the women in business running the music industry today. The podcast is available to listen on all streaming platforms. So great to have you with us, Sasha and Annick, today. And I am keen at first to hear, how did Songwriting Saves the World start and how has it grown over time?
Okay, so we actually started our podcast over COVID. We were FaceTiming a lot, almost like every day, and doing sessions all the time with our other friend Rachel. And we were kind of like feeling a lack of community, and there weren't really like in-person sessions happening anymore. And that was really depressing. And so we were talking about kind of doing something where we can connect to more songwriters and producers and artists. And we really wanted to have something focused on women in music because it's something that we're really passionate about. And so we were kind of brainstorming in ways that we could do that. And since so many people had so much free time, we thought, why not start a podcast and get to interview and connect with people in the same community as us? And so we started off just like interviewing the people that we knew. So friends that we met in like writing camps, or friends that we'd met just like through doing music in general. And then it started to grow into something bigger. And we thought, like, why not reach out to other people who we may not know personally, but we would love to, pick their brain and see what we could learn from them. And so we just started sending out so many emails and reaching out to people on Instagram and where we could find them to start to interview people within music.
Yeah, I mean, I would say exactly the same thing. I think it was interesting when we were interviewing you and you talked about how kind of the world going into quarantine allowed your courses to kind of take off because everyone was doing virtual learning. Like the same thing kind of happened for us because we were able to get people on our show who otherwise would not have come on our show because people were willing to do virtual things and willing to kind of meet people virtually and do things like that. And it was, obviously COVID was a horrible thing, but it was a moment in time where we had like access to people that we wouldn't have had access to. And I think that was really useful for the show building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's lovely. And definitely I think that time gave everyone opportunity to do things that maybe if they were on tour or something they couldn't do. So pros and cons.
Yeah.
Pros and cons. Yeah. Would you be able to tell us, maybe Sasha, do you have a random fact about yourself that you'd like to share with us that maybe not that many people in the industry know?
Okay, I've been thinking about this all day because I was like, what can I say? So I guess there's a lot to pick from. The first thing that came to mind was that I'm an Aquarius.
Yay.
That's very important to Annick and I. We're star sign people. I have kind of a weird middle name. My middle name is Clementine, like the fruit. These are my go-to facts.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I have.
Okay, that's good to know. A fruit for a middle name. I do know a Clementine.
Really?
So it's, yeah. She was on our last course actually. So.
Oh my God.
It's
so
a community.
It's not weird to you. It's a community now.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you guys should just make like a Clementine club. And
Yeah.
That's cute.
That's actually such a cute name.
Yeah. Yeah, it's lovely actually. I don't think it's strange at all. But no, okay, that's good. A couple of facts, maybe not so random, but facts nonetheless from you, Sasha. That's good.
Yeah.
And with you, Annick, would you be able to tell us about a time in your life that maybe you would change if you had the option?
Yes.
That's a deeper question.
I think that if I could change something in my life, I would not have gone to college. I I think that school is great in a lot of ways. And the last school that I went to, Limpy, I loved and I would never change that. But before I went to Limpy, I was going to college in Miami and I like changed my major every year. And I was working full time and I was a full-time student. So it left me with no time to do anything else. So I think I would have worked full time and then done music. And then I would have a hefty savings now that I could use to fund my career. And so I think that I would change that because I was just kind of like in school because I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing versus this is what I want to be doing. So yeah, I would change that.
Okay. So how long was your whole degree then in that case?
So I was in school right out of high school, 2016. I don't even remember.
I don't know.
And then I was in school up until 2020, 2021. I don't remember. When was it? Was last year? And then I stopped going to school to move to Norway to go to Limpy, to go to like another school. And so I graduated from Limpy earlier this year in June, which was fantastic. Love it. Mwah. I give it every 5 stars. But yeah, I have like 2 semesters left of actual quotation marks college. And I was getting a degree in communications because that's where I landed after switching from business and then to pre-med and then to marketing and then to communications.
Okay.
She's done it all.
Wow, that
Just
is
a lot of money spent.
a long journey, yes. Well, good to learn a little bit more about you both and the journey along the way. And it sounds like there have been a few good things and a few maybe challenges across the last few years. So then going into our topic today, which is songwriting and something that you've both been very heavily involved in, and especially doing this in like a songwriting camp setting. So could you maybe, Sasha, talk me through how does the process of songwriting with a group of people that you've never met before usually start at a songwriting camp?
Yeah, definitely. Well, actually, kind of blind date writing is what I feel like I kind of talk about it as, is one of my favorite things. I mean, writing with people that I know and love is obviously top tier. But writing with people that you've never met is interesting because you're immediately diving so deep, at least ideally. Like to get a good song, you have to immediately ask the real questions and like really get into it. And so it's interesting. I mean, depending on different writers' styles and how they usually like approach it. Sometimes people like to talk a lot first and get to know each other in a general sense. And sometimes people just want to start writing, and like writing is the best way we could get to know each other. So there are different methods and I'm okay with any of the methods. I think that I approach it as meeting new people, but I try to just be very open and very like forward and friendly because everyone needs to share things that they wouldn't otherwise share with strangers. And then as far as the writing process, depending on who's in the room, if you have a producer, maybe they'll start, maybe someone has an idea, and you just kind of get into it from there. And I honestly feel like I've met my best friends through writing. Like Annick and I met through writing. The first time we hung out was through writing. Annick was talking about our friend Rachel Bachner, who I also met for the first time through writing. So like I feel like it's an amazing way to get to know someone. And obviously when you have never met people, sometimes it clicks and sometimes it doesn't. And that's just kind of part of it. Like sometimes you write with people and you're like, yeah, I wouldn't do it again. But sometimes it's amazing. And then you're like, wow, I've been in this studio or room or whatever for like 4 hours. And I suddenly feel so close to these people that I had never met before. So yeah.
Okay. And Annick, if you are in that kind of setting, but there's someone that's maybe a bit new to the process and doesn't know how to bring themselves in, is there a way that you would recommend that they maybe try starting, like whether it's having a conversation first or just getting into it, or any thoughts you have on that?
Yeah, I think that if you are new to it and you feel kind of uncomfortable in like a situation, like if you see that someone's not really participating as much and maybe it's because they're uncomfortable, you can always ask like, what do you think about this idea? Or like, do you have any, like kind of open up the room to let them speak?
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes like especially when you're just starting and you're not used to doing sessions and everyone's kind of like talking and throwing out ideas and you're kind of like, I don't know where to step in, just giving someone the opportunity to step in is helpful. And I also think that sometimes maybe suggesting things like, oh, like, let's all do a top line round so you can pass the mic around and everyone has time to share their ideas versus having to like, I have an idea, because that feels kind of like a scary thing to do when you're in a new situation, because then it's like everyone's like, okay, what is it? And they like turn to you and it's a whole thing.
The stares.
Versus like okay, everyone's like putting something down on the mic, or everyone's just like putting a random idea in the air that we can kind of circle around. So I think just opening up the floor to everyone is a good way to make sure that it's less intimidating.
Okay, yeah, that's a great tip to think about, to give it to everyone so that anyone that feels a little bit shy feels like they have opportunity to get into it as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's lovely. And do you think, Annick, perhaps that setting limitations is usually helpful for a writing camp sort of setting? Like, or do you think just leaving it open and saying, go ahead and write something today would be a better way to approach it?
I think it actually depends on the group of people that you're with, because I think sometimes having some sort of limitation or something that you're working towards is the best thing that you can have. So like if there's an artist in the room, it's like, okay, like let's write for this artist, or like let's write about this, or like let's write this type of song today, versus like oh, like let's just see where the day takes us, because sometimes the day will take you absolutely nowhere if you don't have something in mind.
Yeah.
And also I think it's really good to have some sort of time limit sometimes. Like if you are spending hours and hours and hours on a chorus and you like just aren't getting anywhere, I think sometimes you just need to be like, okay, you know what? We've spent this much time on this idea. We're putting on a timer for 30 minutes. If we don't have something at the end of 30 minutes, we'll move on to a new idea. And after that, if we like this, we can come back to it. But sometimes you need to take a break from what you've been sitting in for so long. And also I think that it's better to have multiple ideas and then go back and finish one, versus being stuck on this one thing that you feel like you have to commit to because you've spent time on it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, sometimes when you switch, you're like, oh, this new idea is going so much faster, and we like have a whole song written in a shorter amount of time. So I do think that it's important to kind of get into the room. If it's new people that you don't know, I think it's good to talk about what you want out of the day. Like, are we writing for this person? What kind of song are we making? Because especially in new situations, I feel like it's easier to end up nowhere if you don't have some sort of limitation or like time management something.
Plan of action.
Yeah, some sort of plan of action.
Yeah, okay. No, good things to think about there. Of you might not have very strict limitations, but having some sort of guideline to work towards is a good way to structure the day.
Yeah.
And perhaps you can expand, Sasha, on something that Annick mentioned about you might end up with nothing at the end of the day, and ideally, you know, you're aiming to have a song. So is there a way that you think is useful to structure the day? Like, you know, is it setting some time, I'm only going to work for this long on the chorus and we're only going to do this long on the verse or something like that? Or what would you recommend to try to increase your chances of having a song at the end of the day?
Right. That is what we want. Well, I think it is true. Like sometimes you don't end up with anything, or you don't end up with anything that you love. And I do think that that is just part of the process sometimes. Like not every day is the best song every day. Like every day should be a day that you write and that you try, but it doesn't always, there isn't always like a sparkle in the air and you get like the next top 10, whatever.
And that's okay.
That's okay. And I think taking that pressure off is part of being able to write so frequently, because songwriters, especially if you're the type of songwriter that's writing for other people or going to camps, you're writing a high volume of songs. And so there can't be immense pressure on everything, because I also don't think that pressure necessarily creates the best songs, because like the best songs are fun, or they're emotional, or they're all these types of emotions that you don't really get when you're like stressed out. So I think that accepting that like you might not get anything is important. But I mean, a lot of the things that Annick mentioned, even in the game that Annick was talking about like passing along the mic and each top lining, or setting a timer if you're like, let's do a 30-minute chorus, and then another 30-minute chorus, and then another 30-minute chorus, and then pick the best one. Or kind of things, I don't know, I mean, gamifying it isn't really like necessarily what you need to do, but like getting some kind of creative flow or spark, because I think that worrying about every idea and thinking like every thought that comes out of your mouth needs to be the thing, that's what makes you end up with nothing at the end of the day. So like the point of timers is like, let's just do something and we can go back and make it better. But once you kind of like pull out the plug and get things like going and people sharing, then you won't end up with nothing. You know, I feel like you only end up with nothing when you get stressed or you get stuck on one thing. So yeah, just keep moving along to different ideas, and yeah, sometimes timers or pass the mic things are really fun.
And it's a bonding experience.
Yeah.
Because sometimes in those the first time I ever did a 30-minute chorus was like at Limpy, the second week of school with like people I just met. It was like speed dating. And some of those choruses were really questionable. And it was funny. Like the first two choruses were like, yeah. And then the third chorus we were like, this is not a good idea. But it was funny. And then we became friends. And then the song we ended up with was like a song that we all really liked. But it's because like you can let your guard down and like shake it off, because it's like a free flow of thought, because you don't have time to second guess anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So maybe the bad ideas are good in the sense of kind of lightening the mood and making it a more chill vibe.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there a way to ensure that the group that's in the songwriting session has sort of complementary skills? If someone is more of a lyricist, or someone produces, or, you know, production is their main thing, or is that usually the job of whoever's organising the camp, or how would you go about making sure that that's the case?
I feel like it's hard to put people into sessions and like have very like specific defining roles, because I feel like a lot of the time they kind of overlap. There's lots of artists who are also songwriters and like producers that also lend a hand in writing. And I think that part of being a good co-writer is knowing like which role you're filling in sessions, because it's like maybe you're a lyricist, but you know, maybe you get to that session and you're with an artist who has everything figured out lyric wise, and then that day you're just on melodies and you're about figuring out how to make those lyrics work into this production. And so I don't know if there's really a way to ensure that there's going to be like a writer, an artist, and a producer in every room, because I think that people are multiple things, but I think that there usually is everything in one room. It's just figuring out which role you're playing with that like specific group of people.
Yeah, and adding on to that, I mean, there are a lot of musicians or writers who feel that they have a strength. Like, I'm really good at coming up with melodies on the spot. I'm really good at free flowing with that. Or I have beautiful lyrics just stacked up in my notes, like Notes app. And people might have their own perception of what they're good at. But I feel like a lot of being a writer who does a lot of different sessions is kind of being a bit of a chameleon and being able to see where can I be most helpful right now.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like where can I shine, but like what does this room need from me? And then figuring that out. If everyone has that mindset, then Annick is right. You're going to have everything you need, because like if you're a musician, then you're capable of all these different things. But just kind of being willing to fill different roles and being willing to bring whatever skills you need to bring to make the song the best it can be.
Mm-hmm. What you mentioned there, Sasha, about being a chameleon but also putting the song first, I really like that concept as well, and just lending your skills that you need on the day to make that the best song it can be. Because sometimes people might find, if it's not the right setting and maybe it's not the best group working together, it could be a little bit of an ego situation where people feel like their idea has to be used and their, skill, they need to kind of control the session or something like that. But approaching it as, how can I be the most helpful? I really liked that concept. And have either of you been in that situation where there has been someone who's trying to kind of take control, and how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we both have. I mean, I think that everybody has a bit of that, especially if you're kind of starting with sessions. Or, I mean, I think that I did that for like a while, like feeling subconsciously this need that like I need to show that I'm good at writing.
Yeah, like when my ideas have to get through.
Yeah, like they have to get through because I want to use them and because I want the people I'm working with to know that I'm good and to want to work with me. And so there's this pressure of like, oh, I need to use my idea. But it's so true that at the end of the day, that is not as productive as assisting the song and kind of leaving your ego at the door. And yeah, I've definitely been in situations with people who really, really want to use their ideas, and it's tough. I mean, sometimes you're like, okay, I like that idea, let's go with it. And sometimes you're like, okay, well, we'll go with it. And then they'll see at the end that maybe we shouldn't have. Or whatever. I mean, you just kind of figure it out. But I think that a lot of people who have been writing for a while kind of do have the mindset of like, I should do what's going to be most helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that maybe everyone starts off that way. This was a conversation we had with another writer as well, who he mentioned that at the start he was being quite a bit domineering of the session just because he was a little bit insecure of his own skill. So it's good to know that you're saying that a lot of people might start that way. So maybe if we've heard this before going into collaboration sessions, then we can be a little bit more self-aware that, you know, maybe we don't have to be in everyone's face, and that's actually a good thing for the song.
Yeah.
And what would you say, Annick, perhaps if someone is feeling a little bit anxious about writing with others for the first time?
I would say if you're feeling anxious about writing with other people, it's nice to feel prepared for sessions. So maybe just have some ideas that you have in your notes app or some melody ideas that you think are cool that you can come in with. So that way you have like a starting point. So if someone's like, oh, do we have anything that you want to work on? Or is there anything that you are like excited about? You can have something prepared to be like, oh, this is like a place to start. And it doesn't always mean that you're going to end up with that idea, but it helps get the jitters out of being able to say anything before anyone else does, and, you know, have different ideas that you can give to the session. So that way you feel like, okay, I've contributed, and it makes you feel better starting out. I think talking at the beginning of the session is something that makes me feel a lot more calm. And once you start to get to know the people that you're working with, you feel a lot better than if you're like, I'm in a room with 3 strangers or 2 strangers and I'm supposed to spill out my heart and soul, or I'm supposed to just be like super open, which is hard to do with people you just met. So I think taking the time to get to know the people that you're working with, even if that's like, oh, like, hey, let's go take a walk and talk about some stuff before we start writing, or grab a coffee, or do some sort of bonding before you jump into the session. I usually find that really helpful as well. Yeah, I think those are like my 2 things for people who are new to writing and new to sessions that kind of makes it feel less scary going in.
Yeah, okay. So a few good things to think about there, of having some prepared ideas to go in with, just having a bit of a chat to get into the flow and to get to know the people as well. So that's good. Yeah. And how would you go about finding the right songwriting camp for you, Sasha? Is it like Googling, or do you, I don't know, talk to your artist friends, or, you know, how would you go about that if you didn't have any exposure to that before?
Right. Well, I mean, Googling honestly is what I did. At least like at first, especially I did my first songwriting camp when I was in high school, and I found out about it through reading an interview with a songwriter that I really liked. And she mentioned going to it. And then I was like, oh, what's that? Can I find that online, and can I apply to that, or can I go to that? And then I found others through that. And then through the camps, I met like just co-writers that I can then schedule my own sessions with and write with whenever I wanted. So yeah, I honestly think that Googling is a perfectly fine idea, and you'll find plenty of good options. I mean, for songwriting camps, there's not that many. So the good thing about that is that you're not going to find like a bunch of like fake things or like things that aren't legit, because there's not that many. So there's like 10 and you can pick out of that. And it's like, it's going to be fine no matter what.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, we don't want to go to a fake songwriting.
No,
camp.
or anything. Yeah, no, it's going to be fine. Just Google it.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. Google is accessible and we hopefully all know how to use that. So we can start there. That's great. Cool. Thank you. And I feel like I've learned a bit more about the songwriting camp process from you both, which is excellent. And we're just about to go into our speed quiz. So are you both ready?
No.
I think so.
Okay, so we have 6 quick fire questions.
Oh my God.
And I'm going to alternate between you two and we'll see who's faster.
Oh, no.
No competition.
Oh my God.
No, okay, all right.
my
So
heart's
I'm
actually
going to
beating.
say either A or S at the start, and Annick or Sasha, you're going to respond to the relevant question.
Wait, is it like
Okay, so-
math? Like what are the questions
No,
about?
no. Okay, there's a bit of stress going on here. That's okay. All right, deep breath. All right. A, live DJ or live band?
Live band.
S, ballads or dance beats?
Dance beats.
Okay. S, melody or lyrics?
Melody.
A, Mac or PC?
Mac.
Okay. S, quality or vibe?
Vibe.
A, animals or people?
Animals.
Oh my gosh, you guys were both very speedy. That was very
I
good.
think I was,
I'm
I was
so
so
marks.
scared. I was like, that could have been anything.
Yeah, I know, but we didn't throw you under any buses there, hopefully. So, yeah, all right, good stuff. So, jumping into our top tips. So, Annick, could you provide your one top career tip?
I think my one top career tip, that's so hard because I feel like I want to combine like 50 in one. But I think it would be, do not let your lack of knowledge or experience on a subject or like hold you back from doing it. I think like learn as you go and just trust your instincts, and you have more opportunities and experiences if you just say yes to things and then figure it out as you're doing it or right before you're going to do it.
Yes, actually, that's a great tip because I've heard even from people, for example, wanting to learn with us, and we're an introductory course, and they're like, oh, I really want to learn with you, but I'm going to learn all this stuff first and then join you after like I've done this for a couple of years. I'm like, actually, that doesn't really make sense. So if you want to start, just kind of start, whether it's...
I think just jump into
Yeah.
it. There's like nothing like jumping into something that you have no idea what you're doing, and then you will learn because you will have no choice but to learn.
Exactly.
That's it. Yeah, no, for sure. So no, that's a good top career tip. And maybe that does combine a lot of different aspects of life into one. And Sasha, what would you say is your one top self-care tip?
Well, it's exams week at my college, so that is relevant. Well, I also feel like I have a lot, but I guess my most consistent thing is journaling. Like, not everyone likes to journal, but I have journaled for a few years now, and it just like is always something to fall back on and makes me feel like I am my own friend and I'm my own support, because it's like like 10 to 20 minutes in a day where I'm like talking to myself and taking a second and being like, okay, what's going on? What can we do? What's the plan? Just between me, myself, and I. And I feel like if I don't journal, I often don't do that. And I don't remind myself that I can be a support system to myself. So I would say that.
I love that. I'm a huge fan of journaling.
Yeah.
And I think not too long ago, I was like feeling a little kind of build up of tension and a bit frazzled. And I was like, what is going on? I was like, oh, I haven't journaled in a long time because my notebook was full and I was just being super lazy about going to the shop to get another one.
Gotta get
And I was
a
like,
new one.
and then right there, just left the house. I was like, this has to be done.
And picking out a new one is so fun. Like when my journal gets full and I'm like, oh, I get to go find a new one, get something cute, like get a new pen.
You're like, I've been
Exactly,
waiting
it's
for
a
this.
little reward.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And your one top general life tip. So I'll leave that up to either of you, whoever wants to take that.
Annick, you want to take that?
My one top general life tip is to always remember that there is no rush and that you have time. And I feel like I, for the longest time, was always so stressed about like, oh my gosh, like I'm turning whatever age I'm going to be in the next year. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be 24, I'm going to be 23. Like, I'm running out of time. I was supposed to be successful yesterday. But then one day it just hit me and I was calm and I was like, I have so much time to do everything. Like, if I want to get up and move across the country, I can do that. And then when I get back to home, wherever that is, I can do that and I can make my music career work at whatever age I want and start a business and do this. And like, time does not exist. You can do literally whatever you want and it doesn't matter when you do it and it will be okay no matter what.
Great one.
Yeah, also.
So that is my life tip.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And there's a lot of nuance in there as well, I think, of time just actually being a made up thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just kind of stay present and don't worry too much about what's going to happen in the future. So yeah, I love it. That's great stuff. So thank you so much, Sasha and Annick. I feel like I have gotten a lot from the chat and got some nice tips for starting to work with a few other people. So thank you so much. And is it just exam week for you, Sasha?
Yeah. Annick doesn't
Yeah,
have.
because you're done, Annick.
Yes, I'm done.
Just finals for me.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, wish you all the
Thank
best
you.
with that. And
Thank you.
and I hope you both have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us on.
Oh, absolute pleasure. My biggest 3 takeaways from this episode was firstly, to give everyone that's involved in the songwriting session an option to speak up so that anyone that feels a bit more apprehensive also has an opportunity to show what their thoughts are in a more comfortable way. My second biggest takeaway was to be as helpful as possible to the song rather than letting your ego get in the way and wanting your ideas to be on the song and pushing them onto everyone else. My last takeaway was to get to know the people that you're working with by maybe going for a walk or getting a coffee before the session. This can allow you to feel a bit more comfortable to share any personal stories that you might be writing about. That's it from us this week. I hope you enjoyed the episode and we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.